Power wore tuxedos, and applause sounded like money as crystal chandeliers flung shards of light across a ballroom. A circle of elites burst into laughter as a black waiter near the head table steadied a tray, confident that no one outside his inner circle could understand a word of Mandarin. The Chinese billionaire at the center of it all had just made a joke that was sharp enough to draw blood and soft enough to hide behind glass clinks. The waiter's shoulders squared, but his face remained unflinching. One half of the room waited for a spill, while the other half waited for a scene. The silence before a storm, and a response that would change the night's mood, was what they didn't anticipate. Malik, the waiter, learned that dignity is a habit rather than a pose from his parents, a seamstress, and a night shift security guard. Global trade and graduate school had been his dreams, but dreams and bills don't negotiate in the dark, and the bills had prevailed in the initial rounds. The hotel needed more help when the Global Tech Summit came to his city. With steady, pay for a week of banquets, late nights, and the low-oxygen world where eye contact is selective and humility is required, Malik signed up. The guest list was unaware that Malik had his own secret currency because he had studied Mandarin for 2 years in community classes, repeating words under his breath while refilling glasses after long shifts. He could understand a joke that capitalized on someone's ignorance, but not well enough to engage in political debate. He cherished the language for its precision and melody, for the way it made him feel small and unbounded. He admired what it could open up. In the end, he thought, a modest import business that would bring African farmers to Asian markets with honor on every bill. Malik was seated at the VIP table on the last night of the summit. The billionaire, whose image was featured on magazine covers and billboards at airports, was seated there surrounded by financiers and founders who viewed cameras as mirrors. The room hummed, the table shone. The maitre d' murmured that everything had to go smoothly, no questions, no delays, no mistakes. However, power tests the fabrics weave. Speaking Mandarin, the billionaires group discussed markets, margins, and eventually the assistants. Just below the music's volume were the comments. You would miss them if you didn't know what you were listening for. They were not missed by Malik. With the efficiency of a metronome, he continued to move. He refilled water, folded napkins into flags, and picked up a dropped knife with such speed that it appeared he had foreseen gravity. But every time he turned to leave, the laughter pulled at his back like a leash. The world's favorite trick, invisibility, tightened as no one else appeared to hear the words inside the laughter. Like a tap on the shoulder, the first cut came. The billionaire commented in Mandarin on the amusing sight of ambition wearing a bow tie while Malik was clearing a saucer. It was the kind of line that, by feigning cleverness, allows others to laugh without feeling mean. Some smiled. One visitor looked down uneasily. Malik's hands remained steady. Replaying each tone to make sure he had heard correctly, he put down the saucer and moved away. He had. In the same way that mosquito bites seem insignificant until they bloom, the second cut was smaller but more vicious. Malik brought champagne back. As if life were poured to varying heights at birth, the billionaire pondered that some people are here to refill glasses. Someone slapped the table after the punchline was delivered. Malik took a breath, counted 4 heartbeats, and let it out. Even when provoked, he placed the bottle with the kind of care that makes it unbreakable. Performance wrapped the third cut. A micro-influencer at the table recounted the evening like a documentary of his own charm as a camera phone lifted. Malik faded into the background. Glancing at Malik like someone evaluating furniture, the billionaire raised his voice just enough for the microphone to pick up his tone. Sweetness lacquered over condescension. As he explained how excellence recognizes excellence, it tittered in the room. Malik's posture remained open despite his jaw set, as is typical of people who have trained themselves to be smaller than their skill. The summit whirled around them. A startup used a slide deck to demonstrate a healthcare AI that is pivoting futures. Two diplomats exchanged cautious greetings. Contracts were whispered into existence at a distant table, but a story was tightening beneath the chandeliers. Malik continued to revolve, a peaceful planet trapped in a specific orbit. He overheard the group switch to a risk assessment of breaking into markets in West Africa. Stereotypes entangled with facts, trust-related queries masqueraded as tactics. The lines between ignorance and conceit became more hazy, and the temperature in the room increased, and Malik could have easily allowed the night to consume him. Add the experience to the private museum of moments, he would never have the energy to mention out loud, count the hours, and collect the check. The private discipline he had developed night after night, practicing tones no one could hear, and repeating in a language that had given him a ladder out of every tiny room, however, was something else that clicked into place. It wasn't even language in the fourth cut. It was a gesture, as two fingers, seemingly dismissing a smudge, flicked off a napkin toward Malik. It created a decision. Malik understood that he needed to be specific rather than loud. The antithesis of humiliation is precision. He surveyed the situation, noting the cameras, the attendees, and the recent announcement by the Billionaire's business of a philanthropic incubator centered on inclusion. For the man who thought he was untouchable, the appearance was important. Malik, who thought that words could be tools rather than weapons, cared about the truth. Like someone threading a needle in a moving car, he waited for the right moment, with quiet patience. The floor manager nodded. The desserts were lined up, and the room sat on the verge of fullness. Malik came with a tray, chin up, balanced weight, soft but rigid spine, and perfect angles. The group was in the middle of laughing, sure that the person with the candy would be invisible. After setting the last plate, Malik straightened. A dozen micro-reactions shook around him. A brow dropped, a fork paused, and a screen dimmed. He knew exactly what he was going to say and how. However, he refused to talk to wound. He would talk to make things clear. Malik spoke to the billionaire, directly in Mandarin with the poise of a seasoned musician. Clear tones, a respectful cadence, and the kind of careful enunciation that is impossible to undervalue. He named the impact of the comments he had heard without repeating them. Still speaking Mandarin, he explained that dignity is the foundation that enables any sincere transaction and is neither a costume for the wealthy nor a prop for the camera. Using information he had gained from night classes and conversations with people whose names never appear on magazine covers, he briefly described a supply chain scenario the entourage had been analyzing incorrectly, highlighting the logistics, corridors, the port constraints, and the local partners they had missed. The first response was silence, that distinct sound of a curtain being dropped. Then the shock hit. The billionaire's eyes flashed with surprise and then something more complex. The realization that the stage had changed and the script he had written for the evening was no longer appropriate. Phones went down. The next table had a couple leaning in. As though gravity had just been increased, the influencer's mouth shut and his camera dipped slowly. Malik didn't stand up. He made no threats. He didn't offer an apology for sharing power's frequency. He concluded his message with a straightforward, pragmatic reminder, still in Mandarin, that opportunities are bigger than the napkin-sized presumptions that keep people small and that respect is a better investment than performance. He never raised his voice. His eyes never questioned. He provided a mirror, which is more uncommon than spectacle. The room reflected back to itself how easily people laugh when they think no one is looking, and how quickly they adjust when someone they underestimated speaks in a language they claim to be their private shorthand. There was no more laughter. It didn't come back to life. Following the banquet, the ballroom breathed, and the lights dimmed to a manageable brightness. While guests drifted toward the lobby's press wall to put together their carefully curated versions of the evening, staff started the silent ballet of clearing and resetting. Malik put his tray back and inhaled in the service corridor, experiencing the strange feeling of release and exhaustion. He hadn't done anything clever. He had just decided to be confident in his own self-respect. As usual, word spread quickly, sideways, and was trimmed here and embellished there. Later, some would present it as a sentimental tale about meritocracy, while others would completely miss the point. However, a small group of people who were there that evening grasped the essence of what had transpired. The following morning, a venture partner from the Africa desk came to the hotel and requested to speak with the server who had discussed logistics more clearly than a group of consultants. After flinching when the first laugh came, a junior founder sent a message to her team. On-site anti-bias training must be a standard, not a shield for the next sponsorship. The billionaire, on the other hand, did what public figures do. The following week, he released a statement that was meticulously crafted and polished, encouraging respect and cultural fluency. It would calm shareholders and maybe make some leaders think twice about what they say. The longer story of whether his private posture changed was determined by who spoke without being invited and who sat at his tables rather than by apologies. Malik didn't hold off until that measurement was taken. After taking on 2 additional shifts, he enrolled in a short course he had been putting off that covered import licenses and customs harmonization codes rather than language. Not as a rescue effort, but as a partnership based on justice, he started to draft a plan for a pilot shipment of Shea products sourced ethically. Instead of being a wound, the memory of the ballroom lingered as a line he refused to cross in. Reverse. He would continue to learn. He would continue to appear. By the way he walked through the rooms, he would continue to insist that respect is a non-negotiable beginning point and not a favor bestowed by the powerful. Those who witnessed the events provided their own accounts. One compared Malik's Mandarin to a key turning in a lock that no one knew existed. Another acknowledged that after initially laughing, he felt his face burn when he realized the joke relied on someone's alleged ignorance. "I've never seen someone hold both grace and steel in the same sentence," a staff member whispered to a colleague. No one retelling was able to capture it all. Together, however, they outlined a lesson that many rooms need to relearn. The road to equity is not paved with viral moments, but rather with daily decisions to stop disrespect before it becomes ingrained in society. Malik's mother inquired about the week when he got home. He talked about the long hours, the heavy trays, and the friendly coworkers who made the job enjoyable. In passing, he said that he had had a successful conversation in Mandarin. After that, he cleaned the dishes and went over his class notes.